Hi, I'm Karina. Muffin is here with me, and happy Valentine's Day. So, even though today is about roses and chocolate and boyfriends and girlfriends and significant others, I want to talk about something different, and I think it is at least equally important. I want to talk about self-love. Now, I don't mean in a cheesy way, like, oh my God, I love myself so much, I'm the best. No, I'm not talking about that. I am talking about a healthy amount of self-worth, self-appreciation, self-validation, self-respect, things that we need for our mental health, things that we don't always think about. We're so busy loving other people that we forget to be kind to the person that we are with the most our entire lives, and that is ourselves. And if we become our own worst enemy, which I was really good at, it's not fun. Spoiler alert. So yes, I want to talk about a few tricks to take care of ourselves. So the first thing I want to talk about is the consistency and inconsistency ladder for taking steps and making progress. Basically, we have two ladders. One has the rungs spaced out very far apart. How easy is it going to be to climb that ladder? Well, unless you're super tall or you know parkour or something else, it's going to be pretty hard. And when things get too difficult, we tend to get discouraged. At least I do anyway. And then I feel like giving up. So instead, we have the consistency ladder. Now, instead of jumping by a huge open space each time, the rungs are super close together. And it seems like you're not going very quickly through it. And that's okay. Because in the end, you will get to the same place. You will still get to the top of the ladder, and it will probably be easier than expecting yourself to be super great right away. So baby steps can really, really help, because each time you climb a little bit higher, you can look down and say, look how far I made it. I can do this. And that's empowering. That encourages us to move forwards instead of reaching and just not being able to do it. It's better to make steady, measurable progress and feel good about ourselves than to get overwhelmed and stressed and fall off the ladder. Do you agree, Mia? Yeah, she's busy. She doesn't have these problems. You're such a good girl. Moving on to our next topic. The next thing I wanted to talk about with staying productive while taking care of ourselves and showing self-love basically uses driving as a comparison. I love driving, and I was actually driving on my way to school when I thought of this. So basically, let's compare it to being on the road and we're going downhill. We can coast because things are pretty easy right now. There's no point in using our effort accelerator to speed up when we can save our energy for harder times and just go with the flow until that happens. We can get things done without putting even more pressure on ourselves. So let's just lay back, enjoy the ride, and take pride in how we're doing in the moment. Then when we're on a flat surface, we're kind of in maintenance mode. So if we want our gas to last, so this means we don't want to burn out emotionally, let's try to maintain an even amount of effort. We want things to be sustainable again, kind of like the ladder. So we're not going to drive 150 kilometers per hour halfway through our journey, and then for the rest of it, we have almost no gas left, and it takes everything we have to make it to the finish line. It's not worth it. And then finally, when we have to go uphill, that's when we need steady, consistent effort. We need to slow down, pace ourselves, be patient, be kind, and adjust to the new rhythm until things even out again or end up going back downhill. Life is a road. There will be bumps, there will be hills, there will be valleys, there will be straights and flats and curves and things that we will never expect. The only way to handle those without getting too stressed and overwhelmed is to learn how to shift gears, to learn how to be kind, patient, tolerant with ourselves, and understand that if we didn't sleep well the night before, for example, the next day we don't have to jump into a complex math pretest or something like that. We don't need to torture ourselves doing something that we could put off to a day that we feel better. We're not procrastinating. We're not saying we're never going to do it. But if we focus on a few more simpler tasks and get those done, we're likely to end the day feeling happier with ourselves, and that is worth a lot. So yeah, life is kind of like driving. Self-talk. What is self-talk? Well, basically, it's the way we think about ourselves and talk to ourselves every minute of the day. It's how we perceive and judge ourselves. It's how we imagine that we are to others. It's how we feel we measure up to our own standards as well as the standards of others. And it really, really impacts our lives. People with a more positive self-talk tend to have a happier, more positive outlook on life in general. And people who have more negative self-talk with a lot of self-criticism tend to have a more negative outlook on life. They really go together. So I wanted to show you guys 4 examples that can really be tied into school, even though these come really close to another concept of cognitive distortions, and there are a lot more, but that's not for today. For now, I wanted to talk about polarizing, filtering, personalizing, and catastrophizing. So polarizing is seeing things as either good or bad, and in this case, it usually means ourselves. So there's no middle ground. We're either perfect or a total failure. So let's say we really wanted to get 100% on an exam, but we got an 80. Now we feel like the career that we're planning for has ended before it even started because we're never good enough. That's a really extreme reaction. We're jumping to a conclusion because it's not true, and we can all have an off day, even though 80% is still really good, and it definitely doesn't ruin your chances for a job. Next, we have filtering. So this is basically picking out the negative aspects of a situation while discounting the positive ones. We ignore those. And that's actually easier for humans to do because bad things tend to be more memorable than good things, which is pretty unfortunate. So let's say we completely forget that we work and have an entire life outside of school that we're balancing. We're working super hard to make things happen. And again, our grades are not, on a roll super, super high. So instead of focusing on, wow, I'm managing a lot right now, and yet I'm moving forwards, I'm achieving my goals, I'm doing as well as I can, putting in all the effort. Instead of thinking about that, we're thinking about how we didn't do well on one specific thing. Now for personalizing, this is when if something bad happens, we automatically blame ourselves. So let's say you're in class and there's an assignment to be done in groups, and the friends that you normally work with have already partnered up, and now you're wondering what you did wrong. Did you make them angry? Was it something you said? And then you start doubting yourself and questioning, and it doesn't end well, even though it probably had nothing to do with you. And finally, we have catastrophizing. So this is automatically anticipating the worst. So having a bad day, let's say, and you mess up a pretest, but now afterwards you start crying and you think that you forgot everything you learned the whole school year, and you're sure that you're gonna fail. So none of these are realistic. So now that we looked at some examples of negative self-talk, let's see what we can do to change it. So I was on the Mayo Clinic website, and this is a bit of their advice. So number one, identify areas to change. So pick areas of your life that you usually think negatively about. You can start small by focusing on one area to approach in a more positive way. Picking too many things to work on is never a good idea because, again, it gets overwhelming. 2, check yourself. During the day, stop and evaluate what you're thinking. If you find that your thoughts are mainly negative, try to find a way to put a positive spin on them. It always helps to catch yourself, and even if you can't think about a positive alternative right away, just noticing when you're not being kind to yourself is a great place to start. It's really, really important. 3, be open to humor. Give yourself permission to smile or laugh, especially during difficult times. When you can laugh at life, you feel less stressed. And 4, surround yourself with positive people. Make sure those in your life are positive, supportive people you can depend on to give helpful advice and kind feedback. So it is important to get constructive criticism, and friends are one of those groups of people that we count on for advice like that. What we don't want is to have judgmental friends who tell us things meanly and only contribute to the negative way that we see ourselves. And number 5, practice positive self-talk. Start by following one simple rule. Don't say anything to yourself that you wouldn't say to anyone else. Or, as I like to think about it, think about how you would say it to a friend, or if you would say it to a friend. So be gentle and encouraging with yourself. If a negative thought enters your mind, evaluate it rationally and respond with affirmations of good things about you. So this is a really important point, evaluating things rationally. When a bad thought pops into your head, negative self-talk, what really, really helps is to look at it and see if it's realistic or not. Because sometimes it's just not based in fact, and it's a quick emotional reaction. And if we just let it go, if it happens all the time, it gets ingrained. But if we say, oh, wait, no, okay, I see why I thought that, I'm feeling discouraged, but that's not true. I'm not a bad person, I don't suck at this, I'm just having a hard time right now. Then, we can put it into perspective. So here are some examples of how to turn around negative self-talk. So we have the bad on the left and the self-affirming opposite on the right. So I can't do it becomes I can try a different way. This is too difficult becomes I've overcome challenges before. I'm giving up. That's a big one. Instead of that, you can just say that you're taking a well-deserved break and you will come back to it fresh. It's too much of a change. That's a big inhibitor of growth. Instead, think that it's worth it and remind yourself of why. I'm too slow. Well, I'm allowed to take my time. There's something wrong with me. That's a big one. Instead, try thinking, I learn differently. I'm allowed to have my challenges because we all do. And the last one, this is pointless. Well, my favorite thing to think about when that one pops into my head, which happens a lot, is to ask myself what I really want. That way I stay on track with my goals, and it reminds me that, okay, wait a minute, again, I'm feeling discouraged, I'm not in a good mood, but there is a point because I know where I'm going and I want to succeed. These are just a few examples. You'll find them all the time in your day-to-day life. It can be hard to catch them and change them around, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. There is a lot to say about self-love, and we don't have enough time to get into all of it. So I'm just gonna round up some last points before we end this video. Remember to be kind with yourself. Remember to be patient and to take breaks because you deserve that. We are human, we make mistakes, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. We all need time to relax, to recuperate, to feel better, and to be productive, we need to have fun too. We also need to have respect for ourselves. And what does self-respect look like? Well, a big one is knowing our own boundaries. One of our biggest resources is our own energy, also our time. We often think about money, but our own time and energy are one of the most important things that we have. And setting boundaries with those things is nothing to be ashamed of, and there is nothing to feel guilty about. Saying no to someone does not make you a bad person. It does not make you selfish. If someone asks you to do something, it is okay to say that you wish you could, but you just can't right now. This is normal, and we wouldn't expect everyone to say yes to what we want, right? So it's okay to set our own limits for our mental health. If we overextend ourselves, we're not good for ourselves and we're not good for anyone else. So let's take the time today to appreciate not just everyone around us, but ourselves, because living is hard work. Being a student is hard work. Working is hard work. Everything takes effort, and we all face struggles. Self-love also means knowing that you can ask for help. There is no weakness in that, and we all need it sometimes. If it's you today, it'll be me tomorrow, and your neighbor the next day. We've all been there, and we all will be there. So happy Valentine's Day. You've got this, and send yourself a Valentine's this year.